guys, introspection here, and I'm back with another video. So I've noticed that a lot of people have a tendency to freak out or panic when someone asks them a question along the lines of, what do you want to do when you grow up? Or what kind of job do you want to have when you grow up? And they just start to really put a lot of pressure on themselves to know that answer that very second, or know it as soon as possible. And because of that, I just want to put a few things out there. The first being that if you're talking to somebody who you're not too familiar with, or you just haven't had too much conversation with, then just realize that if they ask you a question along those lines, then they're probably just wanting to create an icebreaker. They just want to start a conversation to just start to get to know you, or perhaps just to keep from entering awkward silence like this. And if you answer something along the lines of, well, I'm not sure yet, or I'm not sure what I'm looking into, or I'm still thinking about it, and they start rattling stuff off, realize they're not pressuring you to pick one of those, or not always just that very second. A lot of times what happens, or one thing that I have a tendency to do, is I'll start thinking of stuff off the top of my head just to give them food for thought. Just so that they can be like, not too interested in that, or, oh, that actually sounds kind of interesting, maybe I'll look into it later. Just to get them thinking a little bit, give them a few ideas. And I don't necessarily expect them to dive into one of the suggestions I've given wholeheartedly just because I named it off the top of my head. Now, if one of them does show of extreme interest for whatever reason and they want more information on one of the ideas I've given, then I'll of course give them the information that I have on hand. But otherwise, I really don't expect them to be like, oh my gosh, I need to enter that very specific field that you've suggested in this 5-minute conversation. That's a little silly. Or if you answer something along the lines of, well, I want to be a doctor, or I want to be a fireman, and you start freaking out because you're worried that you won't become a doctor, or fireman, or accountant, or whatever the case may be, don't worry. You don't need to dedicate your entire life decisions just because you answered this person in this one 5-minute conversation. You're allowed to change your mind later. They're likely not going to track you down for the next 10, 20 years on the sole reasoning of making sure you follow through on that one very thing that you said in that 5-minute conversation. And if they are doing that, you probably need to call the police. That is not normal. But so long as that's not happening, chances are they're not going to do that. So if you're not too sure about the thing that you're thinking about, and you say, well, I'm thinking about being an accountant, or I think I'm going to be an accountant, and later you're like, man, that's not an option that I really want to go into because I hate counting, or I hate doing very advanced math, or this kind of math, that's okay. You can change your mind later. You don't necessarily need to dedicate that one answer in that conversation. The other thing, if you're talking to a mentor or a teacher, and they ask you this question, most of the time, now again, I can't speak for every teacher in the world, but generally speaking, what they're trying to do is get you thinking, because time does move on, and they want you on the path to thinking about it. But you don't need to dedicate your entire life on whatever you say to your mentor or teacher. It's not uncommon for people to completely change their career path later in life. If you're in high school or middle school or elementary school, it's okay. It's definitely okay to change your mind then. That is very young. That is a very short percentage of your life. Even in college, it's extremely, extremely common for people to change their mind in college. Because people enter a course and then they'll be like, oh, this is going to be awesome. They'll finish the course, or they'll be halfway through the course. They'll be like, what in the world was I thinking? What on earth was I thinking? This was a terrible choice. And then they'll change classes. That's one of the great things about universities, that you can actually do that. If you don't like one, later on, you can change a course to something else that you are interested in or you're looking into. And that's something that happens very, very frequently. So you don't have to answer that very second. It's not written in stone. Unless maybe if you write it in pencil, because technically pencil, the lead inside the pencil is a type of stone, I believe. But you get what I'm saying. If you answer that to your teacher or mentor and you change your mind later because you find that you're not too interested in it, or your personality has changed quite a bit, that's okay. You can change your mind later. They're just trying to get you on the path to thinking about it. And even if you don't have any idea what you're going to do yet, maybe not even a subject area. Generally, people have a subject area. Oftentimes, that subject area gets changed. But even if you don't have that subject area, that's okay. I mean, don't let yourself become lazy and not look through it or consider different options. You definitely need to still continue to improve upon yourself, or you definitely still need to consider different options or ideas. But you don't need to think yourself a failure or think less of yourself just because you don't know it that very second, or you don't know it that very instant. It's okay, as long as you continue to search for it. Heck, in a lot of cases, what will end up happening is that people just haven't had the thing that they're good at be invented yet. I mean, think about it. You think the people who decided to install alarms thought to themselves at 5 years old, oh, I'm going to install alarms when they're not to be invented within the next 5 or 10 years? Maybe it might be 20, 30 years before the thing that you like is invented. We don't know yet. Maybe the thing that you're interested in just isn't a thing yet. Or maybe you just haven't had a moment. What happens sometimes is that people will have these moments where they completely change their career path, or they're inspired. Maybe they're on the road to becoming a chemical engineer, and they're walking by the beach, and they see this beautiful fish or these beautiful dolphins, and they decide, man, I should be a marine biologist. And then they decide to be a marine biologist, and it's way later in life than other people, and that's okay, that's fine. Just realize you don't want to fall back into doing nothing, but also don't freak out because you don't know at this very instant you're watching the video. It's okay for you to change your mind later. What I do suggest you do, if you're not sure what you're going to do yet, or if you don't have too much of an idea, a couple suggestions. The first is try a class or two. Go ahead and go online, see if you can find some sort of class on something along the lines of, crafting, building, engineering, coding, whatever you can find. If it's possible, you can go ahead, try out the class, and then you can be like, oh yeah, I kind of like this. A lot of people end up discovering things they like that way. Or then you can be like, well, I clearly don't like trying to put this thing together. I'm going to move on to this next thing, and you've excluded that possible option from your list, and you can move on. The other thing I suggest is, if not that, or in conjunction to that, you can go ahead and go on these online sites where they teach you a series of skills. Everything from math, to art, to things that I probably haven't even heard of yet. Heck, just keep this in mind. There's a bunch of things, even in just art. Stereotypically, people don't think there are too many jobs, except for the very stereotypical ones, such as engineering. Not too many jobs in art. There are a lot of jobs in art. I have dedicated an entire video to jobs about art. It's down in the description below if you're interested in it. But there's a whole video on it that a lot of people are just not familiar with. But even if it's not art, you can just go ahead and look through, because you go through the site, you might find something. You might find something that you never even knew existed, and you find out that, man, I love it. I'll see if I can find a few links to those sites. A lot of them have like free trials. A lot of them are just completely free to begin with. And you can just go ahead and try those sites, go through a few topics, and then you'll be like, oh man, these things are awesome. Oh man, these bite. Or another option you have is go to your local library. You close your eyes, go through the nonfiction section, point your finger through the nonfiction section, and see if you can find something that really interests you. And maybe that'll work. Maybe it won't. I don't know. I guess you're gonna find out if you go ahead and try it. Well, guys, that's the end of the video. Hopefully, I've been able to ease your mind a little bit. If you have any job suggestions or any cool stories as to how you wandered upon your job, I'd be really interested to hear it. Go ahead and leave in the comment section down below. Otherwise, make sure to hit that subscribe button and like button. It helps me out a ton, especially considering I'm such a small YouTuber at the moment. And make sure to hit that bell button so that you can catch my next video in the next 2 weeks. Until then, hear nothing and listen to all. Bye, guys.